That camera lens is blinding us.
That's it. I'm going to make sure somebody gets it right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May Converse County Beekeepers meeting. Do we have any first-time visitors here with us tonight? Well, we've got a crowd. Thank you for coming. We've got a good crowd tonight. Thanks for everyone for coming. Just a reminder, 50-50 tickets and door prize tickets over here at the table. If you hadn't bought tickets or signed up for door prizes, be sure to do that before the end of the meeting. And we're going to get started with our program tonight. Gladys Hutson. She is a certified beekeeper and a master gardener. Is coming to talk to us tonight about when and where to plant bee forage. So welcome, Gladys, and thank you for coming. Just pull it straight ahead.
I'm not that tall.
That's already on, right? Right.
I know, when I stand in front of that thing, it's going to blind me. Where to start here? I've been a master gardener and a beekeeper for the same amount of time, although I've loved planting. My mom was a gardener, so I was digging in the dirt at a very young age. And then 9 years ago, I became a master gardener, and then right after that, it's like they had a bee program. And it's, okay, I want to go check out bees, and that was it. And the two go together very nicely, and I really, really, truly feel that if we feed our bees more plants, nectars, pollens from the plants, we won't have to spend so much money on sugar syrup. Because I've been doing it, I've been planting on my property for 20 years, but I really started focusing on bees the last 4 or 5. And there are summers when everybody else is saying, oh, we're in a dearth, oh, we're in a dearth. I gotta feed my bees some sugar syrup. My bees had honey. They were bringing in nectar. They were bringing in pollen because they were finding the plants they needed. Now, I do have to say that my property, I don't know if any of you have heard of Cane Creek. It's in Union County, and my property butts up probably a quarter mile to a half mile back to Cane Creek. So there is lots of forage back there too, so I can't say it's all of what I planted because I don't follow my honeybees where they go. But in the fall, I do know that the plants that I've put up here, those are fall forage plants, and they are all over a lot of those. So anyway, let's get started with, now I made this program for my bee school. We finished bee school 1st of April, and I thought, you know, this is just a really good program for any bee club, whether you're a new beekeeper, an old beekeeper, because if you start with planting lots of things, you know, maybe you'll have a better, easier time at it. So what we're going to cover is we're going to cover the whole calendar, just month by month by month, and we're going to talk about management for honey production, off-season management, the calendar in itself every month, what we have to do for hive management, the honey flow, and what we do then, adding supers and preparing for winter. So I just did a calendar, month-by-month calendar, and just stuck the plants in there that I know they go to. I know the bee forage, the bee forage they go to. So all beekeeping is local. I know a couple people were up here talking to me about plants, and what's blooming here for you guys is probably different, or maybe a little later than me, because I'm pretty far south in North Carolina. So it's all local, and what you know, different parts of the country, in the northern parts of the United States. I mean, they've got way different plants sometimes than we do. some of the same, but you know, I've talked to people on Facebook. God, what would we do without Facebook? I've talked to people in you know, different parts of the country, maybe the western part of U.S. They don't have tulip poplars, or they have a type of a poplar, but it's not tulip poplar. So it's all local. The forage around your acre may be different, might be different 10, 20 miles away. And then there's a question, is there farming communities around you? Is there a lot of farming? Is there a lot of spraying? Is there a lot of monoculture? Corn, soybeans, wheat, you know, not much of anything else. So it's just, it depends on where you are. From my area where I'm in Union County with the Cane Creek behind me, and the other part of Union County, the eastern part of Union County, is way different because there's more agriculture there. The weather is going to be a big, big factor of what you can plant, when it blooms, from our area to the mountains to the beach. I mean, there's way different things that bloom at the beach. Lots of different things from what I grow. And of course, the genetics of your hive and the number, quality of the drones might be different. Your drone congregation area is going to be different. So the mating of the queen can be different. So, you know, just thinking, when you're talking, especially on Facebook with people, you're talking to people, but, you know, your beekeeping is local, and their beekeeping is local to them. So these factors probably clarify why, you know, when you say, yeah, you ask 10 beekeepers a question, you get 12 answers. Well, that's probably why. That could be a lot of why. And people do things differently, of course. But, you know, my area, my situation in my area is probably different than yours because you live in a different area. So let's start the calendar in January. I don't know how many people insulate their hives, but I've been trying it. And I've been having some good success with it. And I didn't buy these fancy little, you know, wraparound things. I used good old sheets of the foam board, insulation board from Lowe's, and cut it and wrapped it around the hive with duct tape, and that was my insulation. But, you know, it kept some hives alive. So I'm thinking about maybe doing some insulating in my hives. You know, like in between the boards of the hives, or on the top. And then, yeah, you gotta consider moisture and all that kind of thing too. But I've seen some good things about insulation, so. The honeybees are, of course, they're in a cluster. And your question in January and February, is there enough food in that hive? So this is just a little thing I threw together as far as, like, for me, how much honey I want in that hive when I'm going into winter. And, you know, a super holds 20 to 30 pounds, and each shallow, if you just add it up, and I figure that my hives usually have to have 50 to 60 pounds of honey each. But again, sometimes they don't eat that much, but sometimes they do. So I want to have at least that much. So it just gives me an easy way to, you know, do I have a super full of honey and a couple of deep frames, maybe 2 or 3 deep frames, and I probably have enough honey in there. It just gives me a way to calculate it. So again, consumption of the honey is going to depend on the weather. Warmer temperatures will result in more honey consumption. They're moving around more. They're flying out of the hive. You know, they're just having to eat more honey, eat more stores. In colder temperatures, when they go into torpor, how do you say it? I can never say it. But they go into that state of physical and mental inactivity, sluggishness, inactivity, lifeless, idleness, weariness, sleepiness. They go into that sleep state, and then they're not consuming as much. So really, in a colder temp, they're probably not going to consume as much. When we got up and down temperatures like we have in North Carolina, they're in the hive one day, clustering, and then they're out flying the next day. And they're coming back in there and they're eating. So it's making a difference on how much they need. So, a few flowers that I know in January that they go to, because I've seen them on them, and you wouldn't think there would be much out there, which there isn't. But your camellias are awesome. Your Camellia sasanqua in the fall, it blooms, I want to say, sometime December, sometime into January. The japonica, I've not seen them on as much because I think there's more variety for them to go to at that time. So, but I know the Camellia sasanqua, first I only saw yellow jackets on it, but then after a while, maybe it's the time of the bloom that they get a better nectar from it. I saw my honeybees on it too. Then there's witch hazel. They will go to witch hazel. And we all know that they go to bigger clusters of flower, bigger areas of flowers. So maybe they won't be on the witch hazel as much because it's just one tree, you know, but I've seen them on them too. There's not much that blooms in and also when you're choosing the camellia, don't get the big fluffy flower. Get the single petal. The honeybees love the single, they'll go to a single petal. They can't find their way into all that fluff if there's double flowers and big, huge flowers. They like that single petal. So when you're checking out flowers, do that. Get single petals. This is my little bird bath. I found this little container at a yard sale, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna put some stones in that and put it in there. And I had to bring it back in and out when it was freezing weather, but those bees were in there in freezing temp at night, but then it got above freezing in the daytime. I put it back out and I give them rainwater. I don't give them any chlorinated, nothing in that water. I have rain barrels, so I take rain barrel water and pour it in there. And there was bees on there every day. It was warm enough for them to fly. They were out there in it. So any little thing, even a bird bath, and put your pebbles in it, and because they need water just as much as they need the nectar and the pollen. Because if you don't put out water, they'll find it somewhere, and if it's your neighbor's pool, they won't be happy. So okay, February. We start seeing warmer temps here in February. Start budding the trees, plants start coming out of their dormancy, blooming plants and trees that provide necessary sources for the queen to start egg laying in February, sometimes as early as February. And we all know that the red maple is probably their first source of nectar and pollen that they go to, and that gets them started rearing brood. And something I learned is that a red maple can freeze and it'll rebloom. So, and because it's cold in February, it's probably gonna freeze. But that red maple, kind of like it's just made for the bees, it'll rebloom. And of course, our good buddy, the dead nettle. My whole backyard is covered in dead nettle. I just started mowing it down. It was pretty dead. Most of it was pretty dried out. There's a couple patches. So you'll see in my yard, you'll see this big swath of, whoop, there's a big, so I'll just go around it, you know, leave it there for them. And eventually it'll all die and I'll mow it. But they were all over the dead nettle, everywhere. And they get a red pollen from that, another necessary source of pollen first thing in the spring for raising brood. And it did form a ground cover in my backyard. It was just everywhere. And our good friend henbit, they do the same about the same time. Understand though that the dead nettle gives pollen and the henbit gives nectar. But I know they get some pollen from the henbit too, so maybe it's just really thin nectar. And both of these dead nettle and henbit disappear in the heat. They dry up, they go away. So, you know, a lot of people, and I know beekeepers aren't so worried about weeds. It's like most of the plants that people call weeds, you know, were put here to feed our bees. And there's too much yard and lawn and that kind of stuff nowadays. So here's a field of henbit, and that's what you see about February-ish just beautiful. And I'm sure there was lots of bees in there. And of course, then our other friend, the dandelion, and it's a yellow-orange pollen. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, somebody told me this, that they go into the dandelion, and the pollen is so dry. Normally the pollen is yellow, but it's so dry that in order to attach it to their legs, they've got to mix a little nectar with it, and that turns it orange. Not sure if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. So if you see orange pollen going in, it's probably dandelion. If you see yellow pollen, it could be dandelion, it could be something else. Other flowers that you might see around February around here. Daffodils, they will go to daffodils sometimes. Grape hyacinth, they love grape hyacinth. These two are bulbs. Snapdragons, I've watched them go in and out of a bloom in a snapdragon. And they'll get caught in that. They'll have to open it up, and they'll get in there, and they'll get caught in there, and then they'll have to fight their way back out, but they do it because it's something to eat. And hellebore, the old plant Lenten rose, they were all over that this in February and part of March too, because it's been chilly. These are all sources that can build the brood up really, really quickly. Your typical inspection, of course, is go into the entrance. The activity at the entrance is going to be your biggest and one of your best ways to know what's going on with your bees. What do I do when I open up the hive? I'm looking for food, I'm looking for nectar, I'm looking for pollen, I'm looking for brood. At this time of year, I probably don't look so much at the wings because, hopefully they've been without that nasty varroa for a while. Drones, am I in there? Is there drones at this time? Do I need to open up a few cells? Even during honey flow, do I need to add a super? So that's just things that for your typical inspection. So we get into March. There's cold days in March, there's warm days in March, there's above freezing, there's below freezing. Brood is really rapidly increasing and good time to make splits. Giving your queen more room to lay. Possibly you're going to see queen cells, and probably time to put out swarm traps in March. So in March, what you're going to see blooming, your willows are just starting. This is like a big weeping willow tree, but there was this, I was driving down the road, I live south of Waxhaw, of course. I was driving into Waxhaw, and I kept seeing these red sticks in the ditch. It's like, what are those? I'm always looking at different stuff. I'm surprised I haven't gotten in an accident. But these red sticks were all in the ditch. It's like, what are those? What are those? And pretty soon March came around, at end of February, March-ish, and willows. They were just, I don't know what kind of willow they were. They were a red-twigged willow of some sort. Maybe they were pussy willow, I don't know. But that's one of the first things the bees will go to when they start blooming. And they get nectar and pollen out of that, out of the willow. And then along comes, you got the eastern redbud. It's very thin nectar. It's good for brood raising, about March and April. I think this year it was, my trees just kind of started blooming, and then it froze, and then they stopped, and then they started again. So it's kind of been a crazy year. But redbud is definitely a first nectar source, other than the maple. And your wild cherry, I've got a circle that I walk. It's a little over a mile, and I walk it every day. And I have found over 20 years, I didn't see a lot of these things, and then all of a sudden I got bees, and then all of a sudden I started paying attention. It's like, all these things are within that mile walk that I do. A lot of them are within that mile walk, so just keep your eyes open for things. Your wild cherry, it only blooms 2 days. I think it bloomed 3 or 4 days by me. I had this one tree, it was a huge tree, and they don't bloom very long, tremendous amount of nectar. Most years it does bloom the same time as a redbud, eastern redbud. So, black locust. I don't have any in my property. Do you all have it here?
Yes.
Black locust trees?
Yes.
I wish I did. Don't have any, but I understand that if you could get a nectar flow off of it, you get tremendous amount of nectar out of it. So, light green honey, light green nectar.
The town I live in is named after the tree. Locust.
Yes. Okay.
It really is.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. And I'm sure there's probably some around Union County. There's just none by me that I've seen yet. Maybe on my walk I'll see one. All right. So April comes around. Usually April is the start of the nectar flow. We've had such a crazy year that we're probably going to get it in May. It might be started by me. I've seen some things, looking like. And one of the frames I pulled out, and they had some really dark nectar in it. I swear it was tulip poplar. So I don't know. So anyway, the nectar flow is about to start in April sometime. Honey supers should be on your hives March, maybe, early to mid-April. Again, it all depends on the weather and what's going on. If you're first beekeeper, they'll draw out comb really quick, that in April. And definitely times for swarms in North Carolina. And my favorite tree, and I got lots of them between me and that lake, is the tulip poplar. And I get 100% of what nectar that I take from tulip poplar. I don't take it. I take honey once in a year if I can. If the tulip poplar flow is good, I take nectar from that. But the rest of the year, whatever I plant for them, whatever they bring in the hive is theirs to get through the winter. And I found that it gives me some healthy bees. But these will bloom 4 to 6 weeks, again, depending on the weather. I think last year we had the tulip poplars going, and then we had like a 30-degree, 29-degree night. Froze them, stopped it, dead cold. I could see it on my supers. Dark honey, split. And then they went to the clover. Light honey was the rest of the frame. So it's like, some years you get it, some years you don't. Other things that are blooming, bachelor button, which is also called a cornflower. They'll go to that quite often. Your Yopon holly, any kind of holly. And I think the hollies are about done now, or are they still going here? Are they still going? I think they're about done by us. But and then or poppies, they'll go to poppies too. Now my poppies are going to be late this year because they're just barely sneaking out of the ground. But in other years they're already up and blooming. So again, year to year it's totally different. Spiderwort, my spiderwort is blooming right now, and they will go to that. Golden Alexander. The thing about all these different flowers, if you have them, they're pretty and you can enjoy them, because if the tulip poplar's blooming, they won't go to them. They'll be, they might, okay. I don't know, I enjoy growing all this stuff just to see it, and if the bees go to it, fine. What did I see them on the other day? Oh, the red clover, yeah. It was just one bee on the crimson clover, but she was working it. So then we get into May and June, and there's a lot of different plants that bloom in May and June. Tulip poplars are probably finished blooming by the end of May, starting to cap it off. And the next months of summer can be considered dearth, because once that tulip poplar stops and all the spring, flurry of bloom stops, your bees can be hard to find some food. And that's again why if I can take honey out from it in the spring, I do. If I can't, I leave them at least a super, and then whatever they got in their deeps, I just leave it for them. Because sometimes that gets mixed with sugar syrup too if I have to feed them. So I just leave them that super. Most times what I've found through the last couple of years is it's honey, it's not sugar syrup. Because I have fed them very little in the last 2-3 years. But know your forage, just know what's out there, know what's blooming. Your clovers, like I said, with tulip poplars done, my yard, when it's not dandelions or dead nettle or henbit, it's clover. That's what comes up afterwards. And I got a lot of sweet clover coming up here and there in it. I got patches of the crimson clover. It reseeds, but it mostly has to reseed, whereas your Dutch, your Landino clover, your Dutch clover, your yellow sweet clover, they're all perennials. I think the crimson is an annual, so it has to just reseed. But it comes back. And if you have all those blooming at once, they just kind of go from one to the other. One stops blooming, they go to another one, they just rotate. And of course then, I don't know how much sourwood you got here in my little walk around the... No sourwood here? We got the tree. I got the trees. I've spotted them. But a friend of mine said that the sourwood trees here are different than the ones in the mountains, and maybe because of the cold. I don't know. That the ones here don't produce the nectar like the ones in the mountains. And again, maybe because of the cold. I don't know. I walk early in the morning, so I've not necessarily seen bees on the sourwood. Doesn't mean they haven't gone to it. But just, again, be aware. Know your forage. And then the other tree that blooms around the same time is the basswood or the linden tree. And I didn't know about this one either until I started paying attention. And on my walk, lo and behold, these trees right here, these dead looking, the ones that hold their leaves all winter long, some of it is a beech, and the other ones are basswood. And the way you can tell if they're basswood is that they got this jagged leaf. And the beech has a smooth leaf around it, so that's how you can tell. Because I looked at several of these different trees, and they're just all intermixed. The beech and the basswood are all just mixed all together all through the woods. So if you see these trees out there, it doesn't mean they're all basswood. You know, they could be the beech. And again, I don't know how much nectar they get. Some years I think they can get a good amount, and some years maybe not. But it's called a bee tree. Linden tree is called a bee tree. So, borage, plant borage. I don't have any seeds for borage here because I don't have a plethora of it yet to seeding, but I'm getting there. But it is known as a starflower bee bush, bee bread, bug loss, a medicinal herb. It's a bee hot spot in the garden, so they will spread. They will spread quite nicely. If you got a nice patch, get them going, they'll reseed. I don't know if I can't remember if they're annual. I think they're annual, reseeding annuals. But they are definitely a powerhouse with an abundance of nectar. So plenty of some forage. All right, we're into July and August. At summer solstice, something happens with the bees. They know. It's like the days are getting shorter. And that's when they start preparing for winter. The spring is like, woohoo, heyday, nectar, nectar, pollen, build up brood. Of course, they gotta build the brood up in the summer too, but then that summer solstice happens, and you can almost tell when you go in the beehive because everybody's really nasty. You know, they don't want you messing around in there. It's summer solstice, now stay out of here. They know the days are getting shorter. So anything you can plant and have blooming at that time so they can bring the nectar in, they can bring the pollen, they can bring up, you know, get the winter bees at a healthy level. It's just going to help them. They've usually finished capping off the honey at this time, the spring flow, which may vary due to humidity levels. I've noticed sometimes I'll go in there and they'll just be capping it like crazy, and then other times it's really humid and they're having a hard time drying it out, and it takes them a long time to cap it. And we all know a first-year beekeeper shouldn't take any honey. Leave it for the bees so they can get through the winter, maybe next year. And always have water. Always, always, always have water for your bees. When can I take my honey? Was there enough of a spring flow? Is the honey capped? What blooms for my bees during the summer? If I take it all now, what are they going to eat tomorrow? I just don't like to feed them sugar syrup. Not only do I not like to buy it, I just don't like to feed it to them. So I'd much rather than have my honey, have their own honey. What stores do they have? And maybe I need to share the abundance of that honey with the weaker hives so they can make it too. So it's all different things you have to think about. Remember that their own honey is much healthier for them than the sugar syrup. And I don't know if I've got it in here, but if I do have to feed them sugar syrup, and this was told to me by a gentleman who lives in Virginia. He's from Spikenard Bee Sanctuary. I don't know if anybody have heard about that. This gentleman told me, what's his name? Gunther Hawk. He told me, he says, take a pinch of sea salt, not iodized salt, sea salt, and put it in your sugar syrup. It'll make it easier for the bees to digest it. Yeah. So I've been putting, not iodized, not your table salt, get you some real sea salt and put it just a pinch in there. I might have it in there, but in here, but I don't know.
So thanks for having syrup.
Pardon?
Thanks for having syrup. How big of a batch of syrup you got?
A couple gallons. It doesn't need much. I guess it neutralizes it. Somebody was saying something about apple cider vinegar too, and I don't know. I don't know. I'll just stick with the salt. Just makes it easier for them to digest it. So your summer months, of course, you got your sunflowers, and you've got sunflowers, varieties and varieties and varieties of sunflowers. You can go into the, seed stores, and there's just so many different ones. On the table, I've got one here called swamp sunflower, and that is a perennial, and it will spread like crazy, and the bees absolutely love it, and it's like way late. It's a really, really late bloomer, but any sunflower is great nectar for the bees. The issue with sunflowers, you don't really want to take that nectar because it crystallizes really fast. Zinnias, they're awesome. Bees are all over it. Russian sage. Anybody grow Russian sage here? Every kind of pollinator in the world is on that plant. Bees, bumblebees, wasps, everything. Bee balm. I got a purple and a red. The Gaillardia blanket flower. I've been on that. Obedient plant. Now, that name is so misleading. It's not obedient. It will spread like crazy, but the bees are on it. They like it, so I grow it. Mountain mint, there's another one that's a spreader. Mint. Bees love mint. I have catmint, I have mountain mint, I have another one called calamint, or C-A-L, calamint. If you look it up, it's a shorter mint. It doesn't get so crazy big. Mountain mint gets about yay tall. And there's pollinators on it all during the year too. The honeybees, I think, get it when it's early bloom. There's more nectar in it for them. And then after that, it's like everybody else is on it. Cleome, I guess is how you say it. And that's an annual too, but a very prolific reseeder. It'll reseed if you got it somewhere, grown in a pot or something, it'll drop seeds for next year, almost guaranteed. Coneflower is of course echinacea, and there's lots of different kinds of echinaceas too. I like the old-timey purple one. I think they get more out of it. When you get the cultivars, then you're changing the flower too, and so I don't know how much they get out of the cultivar. Because now they've got orange ones and yellow ones, and they're pretty. I don't know how much the bees get out of it. Partridge pea. Used to have a nice stand of this. This road I traveled in between Waxhaw and Charlotte. I take back roads. I hate main roads. And I'm always looking, checking out what there's growing in the ditches. There was this beautiful stand of partridge pea. And of course, this year, there's a subdivision there. Made me sad. Vitex tree, or the chase tree. Now this one takes a while, but you know that the trees give them tons and tons of nectar, and they just love this. They're all over the Vitex tree. So then we're into September and October. And in my area, in Union County, I have a definite second flow unless we get real hot, dry summer. And then, of course, I'm watering some of my stuff in my yard, in my area. So they still got that to go to. But again, on my walk around this mile, last year, the goldenrod started blooming end of July. It didn't quit until frost. That's how much goldenrod. So there's 100 species of goldenrod I think that they can identify, or they have identified or named. But there's like, okay, you got your bees in there cross-pollinating, so they're making different species. So I guess that the bees have just cross-pollinated enough there that there was goldenrod blooming from end of July to frost. So to me, that's the second flow. And it's a critical time for the bees to store up for winter. So anything you can plant for them is just going to benefit them. And besides that, I love going out there and seeing something I planted, and then the bees are in it and bringing in the nectar and the pollen, and it just makes you feel good. The eggs that are laid now are going to become the winter bees in September and October. So having enough forage, you just feed less sugar syrup. And of course, it's time for whatever treatment protocol you do. And then, of course, cooler nights triggers the expelling of the drones. Goldenrod. This one right here is called Fireworks, and it's a spreader. I planted that, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. I got a patch of it now, like this. And so I divide it, give it to friends, share the love. And this is one that I saw. I took a picture of on my walk, and there's another different one, but there's just, I don't know how many species of goldenrod there are out there. I have no idea. This is the swamp sunflower I was talking about. What I'll do, I made the mistake not knowing how vigorous it was. I planted it next to my bedroom and bathroom windows. I thought, oh, sunflowers, as I look out the window. Well, they have taken over there, of course, and I've got a bush in the middle of it, but they've pretty much taken everything else over. And what I do is at 4th of July, now every plant is meant to bloom. It will bloom. If you chop it down at 4th of July, it'll still come up and bloom, and it'll bloom a little bit later. So that's what I started doing with this swamp sunflower. 4th of July, I go out there and I hack it down. Because otherwise it's up over my windows and I can't see out anyway. And then they get all floppy in the rain and they fall down. So then they grow, and by the last of the goldenrod, or I don't know, what was it this year? End of October, right till frost. I mean, they were blooming, and they bloomed for a good month, and those bees all over them. Every day that the bees could be out, they were on it. So that's just kind of a way to maybe keep this one a little bit under control. If you do want to plant it close to your house, just don't be afraid to have it. No, of course, let it get established first. Give it a couple years. The thing on perennials is it's called, the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, the third year it leaps. So let it get that third year in, and then you can be as brutal to it as you want, and it won't die. I guarantee you. And basil, this one here is holy basil, I believe, and that one's the blue, African blue basil. They were all over it. And the tops of these little stems right here are all seeds. And so I'll just take that top of that stem and just pull it off, and just throw it. And just pull it off and just throw it. It'll get real dry, so you'll be able to tell when it's seeded. And it'll come up everywhere. And you can eat it, the bees like it, it's pretty, win-win. And cosmos, they were all over the cosmos. These two are annuals. Basil, of course, is an annual, cosmos is an annual. And they were all over it, reseeding, readily reseeding, easy to grow. Cosmos is very easy to grow. Liatris, this is a late bloomer liatris. There's different species that bloom at different times. I have ones that bloom more in the summer, and then this one blooms toward the fall. And your asters, you get your New England aster, your Stokes aster, your woodland aster, your Maryland aster. I have the Maryland aster over there. Again, asters are great for nectar, bringing in nectar. And there are a few ground covers that I really like. St. John's wort. As you can see, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in one bloom. So they evidently like it. And here's one I want to grow. I haven't grown it, blue anemone. I think that's a spring bloomer, but it's also kind of part shade, and I've got a lot of shade in my yard too. Most of the things that I have for sale for seeds here are sun-loving. They're pretty much all sun-loving, and it's nice to have something in the shade. That spiderwort will grow in the shade too. And then of course thyme, creeping thyme, they're all over that. Again, that's more sun. Some ground cover. Sometimes you need something just cover the ground because you know nature abhors a vacuum. Wherever you don't have something, nature will put it there. And something you want or something you don't want. So then we're back to November and December. Full year has passed. We look at the stores, nectars the bees brought in. Is there enough food? Do I need to feed them anything? Hopefully, 3 or 4 years of growing things. They can be kind of self-sufficient. Now I know we're going to have hot, dry summers where, you just have to feed them, but man, it's so nice to not have to do that. Both of these months can be seasonably warm. We can be out in shorts at Christmas and Thanksgiving, or they can be brutally cold like they were this year. So whichever it is for your bees, they have to be ready for winter. Physically preparing the hives, insulating the hives. I truly believe in insulating my hives now. Closing the screen, bottom screen, installing mouse guards, getting them all prepared for winter so you can kick back, right? And this for a long time I thought was my opinion, and people didn't want to believe it. That's fine, that's whatever. But why do bees forage for 3 to 5 miles? Are they looking for the sweetest? Are they looking for the best? Are they looking maybe for medicinal plants? I don't know. If you have a chance, if you can copy that down, take a picture of it, something. It's an article that's saying that maybe they are looking for specific plants to deal with a certain situation. Maybe they got something going on in the hive and they need thymol. Guess where it comes from? Thyme plant. Maybe they need the acid that comes from, the oxalic acid comes from a plant. You know, and people have told me I'm crazy, or where's your proof, where's your proof? Well, sometimes you just gotta try something to see if it does work. And the bees have been around for a lot longer than we've been keeping them. So I really truly believe they know something, probably a lot more than I know. And so, anyway, it says the pollinators who feed on the nectar of certain plants seem to receive some relief from parasitic infections. The research goes so far as to suggest that understanding the chemistry of bee diets could at least provide missing information in the mystery of pollinator declines and suggest ways that people can support bees, self-medication efforts through targeting plantings. So there's, you know, people are starting to think that same line. And I believe it. I believe they can go out and find what they need, whatever that might be. Now, I know you in here probably know of Bill Shepherd. Yes? And I learned a lot from him, and I kind of picked up the stick, if you might call it, and I heard many talks from him, and I knew he knew his stuff. He knew this state like the back of his hand, and he knew where to find the plants, and the knowledge he has. We did a tape, Nancy Rupert, and they did a tape at Randolph County, and I've got the film, and I've got to get it on CD. Because I want to share it with everybody, because he's got a lot of information in that. But this is one of the plants that he talked about, was wild camphor. Guess where it's growing? In my mile. I saw it, I picked it. I have a friend that she can identify any plant out there. And I picked it, or I didn't pick it, I just looked at it, I took a picture of it, I sent her the picture. She said, oh, that's camphor. Does it smell like cat urine? Yep, that's a camphor. So one of the treatments in something, I don't think they use it anymore, it was camphor was in it. One of the older treatments, I can't remember, Kumava? I don't know which one it was, but, so, you know, I'm gonna try to propagate this too, because I got seed from it. I don't know if I'll get it to propagate, but I'm gonna try. I love it when I try something that works. But again, you know, some of these plants are used in treatments, the thymol, the oxalic acid, the camphor. So why can't the bee just go find it? Because we've been taking it all away, that's why. Just like that patch of partridge pea that was there, it's gone. I collected seeds though, so. Knowledge will come from experience. This is just the beginning of the adventure. And I just love this quote, this so much, that I just had to put it in here. Until one puts their hands on a live hive, hears her hums, witnesses her dances, smells her brood and honey, you will never feel what a beekeeper feels. The power to protect her is so overwhelming you become possessed, and her loss of life is devastating. You lost a friend. So I'm a beekeeper, I'm a gardener. I'll never stop planting, I'll never be done planting, and I'll be never done learning.